Down 13 midway through the fourth quarter, Miami turned things around, hitting big shot after big shot, but it was a last-second block by Jimmy Butler that sealed a one-point game, the signature win of the season. We break it all down in today's Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on all things Miami Heat, however you might be tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or on your favorite podcast app. Thank you so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here from FTX Arena with David Ramil. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. As the world's largest therapy service, BetterHelp has matched 3 million people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists, available 100% online. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Well, the Heat came back from 13 points down in the fourth quarter to beat the Suns 113-112 on Monday night, and the run coincided with Jimmy Butler re-entering the game midway through the fourth, down 112-89 with 7:44 to go. The Heat gone scoreless for nearly 4 whole minutes before Jimmy checked in, and immediately the Heat went on a 12-0 run and got back in the game. And in a game in which the Suns led for most of the second half, there were 5 lead changes in the final 138. And finally, Bam's free throws put the Heat up by 1 with 35 seconds to go, setting up a dramatic final possession. Cameron Payne's layup rims out. DeAndre Ayton grabs the offensive rebound, kicks out to Devin Booker, who rises up for a game-winning jumper, but no, Butler goes up with him, blocks the shot with his left hand, forcing a 24-second violation and sealing the Heat's best win of the season. Before we break down Bam's 30-point outing and Jimmy's huge block, the Heat have now won 3 straight games for the first time this season. They're now 500 for the first time this season. So, David, does it feel like the Heat are finally starting to turn things around?
It's hard to gauge that considering 2 of those wins came against the Charlotte Hornets, but they're still quality wins. This one against the Suns, again, I think it's the signature win of the season. Quality win. I think we're starting to see things trending in the right direction, playing to their identity defensively, getting the kind of opportunities. Offensively, we're seeing Bam take a leap, I think, over the last few games. He's continued to be aggressive. Despite the fact that they missed some pretty wide open shots, they were still able to get within the flow of their offense, find their rhythm, particularly late in the game. It's tough because they shouldn't have had to have come back the way they did. They had a big lead earlier in the game, and then they allowed Phoenix to come back strong. So it shouldn't have gone to that point, but it's a positive night, a positive win, and definitely a step in the right direction.
It's positive considering what the other side of this was that you were up 8, like you said, and then you gave up a huge Phoenix run. Yeah. They kind of storm out of the gates in that third quarter, take the lead, and basically lead the entire second half until the final 4 or 5 minutes there. So if the other version of this game happens, if the other result happens where the Heat lose by double digits, and look, Phoenix is a really good team, okay? Like there's not
missing Chris Paul.
They were without Chris Paul, yes, but they're still a really good team. But if you lose that game in that way, giving up as many points as you did, the defense has been such a problem for Miami all season. Entering tonight, 19th ranked in defensive rating. They gave up 100 points with like 6-something left in the game. They had given up 100 points, 91 points in the first 3 quarters alone. And finally, that defense sort of tightened up in that final stretch in that fourth quarter. But if the defense gives up that many points and you're just sort of discombobulated and you lose by double digits at home right before you're going on this 4-game road trip coming up, that could have been a morale killer. I thought it was telling, David, that at the end of this game, Jimmy Butler gets that huge block on Devin Booker, and what does Jimmy Butler do? He goes right up to Eric Spoelstra and gives him a hug. Right. And that to me was just that's the game. Everybody, that picture of Jimmy blocking Devin Booker's shot with his left hand, that's the one going around online. But the one that I keep thinking of is Jimmy hugging Spo.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You could tell that there was a shared moment of positivity. I would have loved to have heard exactly what they said. Nobody asked him in his post-game presser, but still, it was just a matter of him connecting with his coach and saying, you know what? You gave me the assignment. I wanted this opportunity to take on Devin Booker, an all-star, a great scorer. Book's looks all night were fantastic. Like, he was knocking down tough shot after tough shot. And yet Jimmy, in the waning moments of the game, locked him up completely. And for him to be able to go up to Spo and just say, you know what, this was us, this is who we are, this is who I am, thank you so much for this, whatever it was that he was saying, but something along those lines.
I do think Brendan Tobin asked him about it, and he basically said, this was a big win for us. And who knows what they actually said, but he was admitting how big of a win this was. And it is a morale boost.
Sure,
look,
a profanity-laced tirade, at least,
right.
I'm sure.
Hey, look, it beats threatening to fight him.
Yeah, this is exactly right, though. It could have been the other way around. It could have been, you know what, we blew a big lead, we're getting our asses kicked by a good Phoenix team, and now all of a sudden I crumble in a big moment here. If Bam's not aggressive, if Bam doesn't hit those shots, if Bam doesn't get those last-second rebounds and puts them in this position to win, where they have that lead that allowed Jimmy to get to that block shot, this could have been really, really bad. As you said, a long road trip up ahead. That's demoralizing. That's tough. You go up against tough teams on the road. You needed this win. Now you're going in there kind of coasting with 3 straight wins. A lot of positivity in that locker room afterwards. So definitely a step, again, in the right direction.
Let's talk about Jimmy's block. This is his second game-winning block of the season. Obviously, he had the one against Steph against the Warriors here at FTX.
Yeah.
And this one against Devin Booker, which forced a 24-second violation. We're calling them both game-winning blocks. I don't know if people keep track of game-winning blocks, but I have to believe that Jimmy Butler right now is leading the league in game-winning blocks. Yeah. Can we change the nickname from Jimmy Buckets to Jimmy Blockets? Are we okay to do that now?
Jimmy Blockets sounds a little uncomfortable there. I'm not sure. No. Still a great defensive possession. Absolutely. It was a fantastic moment there. The crowd so excited to be at the arena for this win. What a moment for the Heat, because it was a big shot after big shot, as I said, and then that block coming down there, everybody just riding the wave of emotion. It was just incredible.
Phenomenal atmosphere at FTX.
Absolutely. Well,
for FTX, now, FTX, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
A good way to go out for FTX, better than the way that real FTX actually went out.
Yeah.
Just a couple more box score notes here. 15 of 33 from three-point range. I love to see that.
Yeah.
23 assists on 38 made field goals. I love to see that. You end up scoring 113 points, which it wasn't as if Miami struggled offensively all night, but given how many points that Phoenix was scoring, that was huge. And then I mentioned how they were able to lock up Phoenix down the stretch, 24 to 10 run over the final 7 minutes and 44 seconds, 5 blocks or steals combined, 5 of them in the final 7:44. All of that defense leading to offense, and that was it, right? You get that stop. And then you get the easy buckets down there. You mentioned Bam Adebayo and his 30 points. So many of them just came in transition. He had that incredible spin move to a layup thing in transition.
Booker,
That was unbelievable. This was, I don't mean to overstate it here, and we're going to talk about sort of lessons that they could take from this 3-game win streak onto this 4-game road trip. We're going to talk about that in a little bit after the credit cookies. But I do wonder if this was just sort of a turning point for the Heat season.
It feels that way. They'll have to continue to capitalize on that, or else this is all for naught. But again, 3 straight wins against a quality opponent now with Phoenix. You could dismiss the 2 wins over Charlotte, although they struggled in that first win on Thursday night. They had a blowout over Saturday. But now this is, again, a big win over a really, really good opponent. Even without Chris Paul, you could point to the fact that Miami missing Tyler Herro.
Yeah.
He wasn't available also. So injuries are a part of the NBA right now, but still, the positivity, I think it's absolutely a momentum builder from here.
You can only play who's in front of you, right? Should just mention Devin Booker ended up with 25 points on 11 of 22 shooting, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. He was phenomenal. I'm surprised he only scored 25 points, but he was great in that second half.
They weren't going to him as often as they should have, in my opinion. It just seemed like whenever he had the opportunity to score, there were easy looks, and he's just so smooth in that jumper. I thought for sure he was going to have a much more potent game later on.
Dwayne Washington Jr., who apparently is a player, 21 points on 8 of 14 shooting.
Yes.
That was not the visitor that just tried to pay us a visit. But we are going to get to credit cookies, a lot to carve into here on the next segment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Heat is brought to you by Sweat Block. Believe it or not, covering the Miami Heat is an active job, rushing between locker rooms and the court to catch players and coaches, hiking up the stairs to get to media row. And look, I'm not saying it's like playing out there on the court, but every once in a while, I'll break a sweat. And when you're talking to Heat players, you want to be taken seriously. There's nothing worse than a sweat stain under your pits to make somebody not want to talk to you. That's why I use Sweat Block. Sweat Block wipes were invented by a doctor and they're guaranteed to work, or you don't have to pay. They call it the Sweat Block Dry Shirt Guarantee. If Sweat Block doesn't keep you dry, you get your money back. They also have a bunch of great products, just like basic deodorant and things like that I always keep with me in my bag. If you or someone you love is experiencing embarrassing sweat or odor, try Sweat Block risk-free today. Save 20% with the promo code LOCKEDON at sweatblock.com. Also, Sweat Block is available on Amazon.
Are you wasting money on subscriptions? Because 80% of people have subscriptions that they've forgotten about. I know it happened to me recently. I didn't even realize I was still subscribed to a local media outlet. Trying to get out of it, almost impossible. But maybe for you, it's like an unused Amazon Prime account or a Hulu account or something else that now you're sharing with somebody else. Netflix. Who watches Netflix anymore? There's this great app that I use that helps me track all of my expenses. And because of it, I no longer waste money on subscriptions I don't even use. You might have heard of it. It's called Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill. Do you know how much your subscriptions really cost? Because most Americans think they spend around $8 a month on subscriptions. Well, the actual number is closer to $200. But the app shows you all of your subscriptions in one place and cancels what you don't want for you. Rocket Money can even find subscriptions you didn't even know you were paying for. You may even find out you've been double charged for a subscription. To cancel it, all you have to do is press cancel. It's that easy. And Rocket Money takes care of the rest. So cancel unnecessary subscriptions with Rocket Money today. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Seriously, it could save you hundreds per year right around the holidays. Who doesn't want that? That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon.
Thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. It is a Heat win, which means it's time to get in the kitchen and cook up some credit cookies. David, what kind of cookies do we have tonight?
It's a classic win, so it's a classic cookie. Chips Ahoy, my favorite. You can't go wrong with chocolate chip cookies.
Bam Adebayo, 30 points on 9 of 18 shooting. Finally hit that 18 field goal attempt threshold that we've talked so much about. 12 of 14 from the free throw line, 10 rebounds, an assist, a steal. A phenomenal game from Bam Adebayo. So much of what he was doing coming in transition, like we said earlier, 12 of his 30 points coming in the last 6 minutes and 47 seconds. Huge for that Heat run, that 24-10 run that ended up closing and winning them the game. We have 10 Chips Ahoy cookies to give out. I feel like I want to give all 10 to Bam Adebayo. I really do. But Jimmy Butler had the big block. Kyle Lowry had a huge game. I thought Caleb Martin was really active. We'll get to all of them. We got to save some cookies for them. But do we?
3?
Is that enough?
It's not, but in order to distribute it evenly. And look, I'll make this point because a lot of people sending us comments via YouTube. Increasing the number of cookies doesn't help because we're just going to wind up giving more to the players that we feel are deserving. It's percentages. It's 30% of the cookies, whether they're 20 or 100, however many. So I think 3 sounds fair.
I want to give him 5.
Considering Jimmy had those big moments there,
it's still 5 cookies to give to 3 other players. Do we look? Maybe we save Bam. I don't know. You want to call it 4?
Let's call it 4. 4 cookies for Bam Adebayo. I love the quote from Eric Spoelstra.
He had twice as many points as anybody else. Jimmy Butler had 16.
After the game, Eric Spoelstra talking about something that we've mentioned many, many times, that people obsess and focus on the statistic at the end of the box score, but there's so much that he does well. And Spo said, I don't think I've ever coached a player that's been asked to do so many different things. Do you have the exact quote here?
No, I do, but I want to save that for the third segment. Okay. I want to get into that because
phenomenal.
It might have been a direct shot at Heat Twitter. I want to discuss that. Bam Adebayo plus 12 overall in this game, in a game that they won by 1 point, that they had to come back from 13 points down. I don't think we can give Bam Adebayo too many cookies. We'll do 4. I'm going to make an argument for 5 later.
Sure. So next.
Jimmy gets 3. Offensively, he was fine all game. It was just the block. Like, how many points? And defensively, his defense against Devin Booker in that final 6 or 7 minutes was huge. He started on Devin Booker, but he was getting switched off of him on and on, as the Miami Heat do. They switch everything most of the time. But at the end, he was like, you know what? You're not switching me off Devin Booker. I'm staying with him. He gets the block. And then after the block, Devin Booker recovers the ball and drifts out to the 3-point line, and Devin Booker just Jimmy Butler stays there with him and forces that 24-second violation. You could argue that he made 2 huge defensive plays on that final defensive possession.
Yeah. A couple of seconds on the clock is just enough for Devin Booker to get that shot off, and we've seen him hit these big shots in the past. So absolutely, it was not just a block, it was 2 defensive possessions there, both fantastic moments there from Jimmy. 3 is absolutely fair. I think.
And the big run, he didn't really score at the end, but the big run did coincide with him coming back into the game about 7.5 minutes left.
Yes.
They didn't score for almost 4 whole minutes. I think it was 3:48 that they just don't score. Jimmy Butler checks in, and immediately what happens? Kyle Lowry gets the basket. What happens next? Max Strus gets a bucket. What happens next? Bam Adebayo scores. It was just – and Jimmy doesn't necessarily touch the ball. Maybe it's the gravity. Maybe it's the tension Phoenix is paying on him. Maybe it's his ability to collapse the defense and kick out, whatever it was, but he wasn't really touching the ball all that much.
I think it's a reputation as a closer. Yeah. Everybody knew that he was going to take up those opportunities because he has done so frequently throughout his career. Instead, he doesn't need to, and it makes things so much easier for everybody else. They were so focused on what Jimmy has done and what he was capable of doing that they were just not focusing on everybody else. That gave Miami the opportunity to close that gap from 13 in order to take the lead.
I want to give... 3 feels right. I want to give 2 cookies to Kyle Lowry. I thought he played a phenomenal floor game tonight, and I want to discuss Kyle Lowry a little bit more. Where's the stats here?
5 and 14 from the floor. Just a solid night. Look, he missed a couple of shots that he really should have, but I think overall, you took him out of the game, and you see the offense collapse in a way that I think a lot of people just don't recognize. So again, so many people focusing on, does he hit this many shots? Does he get to this many points? The barometer is different for Kyle Lowry. You're using the wrong gauge to measure whether or not he's effective. When you see him out on the floor, when you see what this offense becomes, when you take him off of it, all of a sudden it discombobulates to this really empty mess, even with Jimmy running it. And then maybe it would have been different with Tyler on the floor.
Well, that's what I wanted to discuss. 15 points and 6 assists. I think he had 5 assists in the first quarter. So he didn't have enough. But just the way he runs the offense, we didn't see that when Tyler Herro was healthy and on the court.
Careful, because I made this point a couple games ago.
No. I know a lot of people will focus on Max Strus over Tyler Herro because that's the obvious shooting guard swap there. When Tyler Herro's injured, Max Strus is starting. But to me, the biggest difference is Kyle Lowry and how much he is used on the ball. And that, to me, is what they need to carry over when Tyler comes back. Kyle Lowry is the best point guard on this team, not Tyler Herro.
No doubt.
And
close.
And when Lowry is off the ball and Tyler Herro is just running pick and roll with Bam Adebayo over and over and over again, I don't think that that's the best version of this Heat offense. That puts Tyler on the ball way too much, who's still a developing playmaker, but keyword developing. Kyle Lowry is a Hall of Fame playmaker. He is, as Spo calls him, a Hall of Fame quarterback. All that stuff is accurate, and he's not that great off the ball. Tyler Herro is elite off the ball as a shooter, as a catch-and-shoot three-point shooter. Kyle Lowry's okay off the ball. He can make open threes, whatever, but he's not special off the ball in any regard. But putting him on the ball, he can orchestrate the offense. He can get guys involved. More than just sort of pointing from the corner and screaming at guys, he can run the offense. Yeah. And that would put Tyler Herro off the ball, letting him be more of a movement shooter and get into more of those catch-and-shoot looks as opposed to the pull-up looks, which he's still good at, but not elite at. Top 1% in the league he is, Tyler Herro, at the catch-and-shoot stuff. So I would love to see when Tyler Herro comes back, Kyle Lowry starting. That does not necessarily mean that I think Tyler Herro needs to go to the bench. I think that's where you and I disagree. But I think that's sort of the learning curve that they need to figure out. Hey, let's put Lowry on the ball and figure out a way to make Tyler more of an off-ball player a little bit more often than he is.
The problem is that with Tyler having missed time, and maybe we shouldn't even really focus on Tyler, the fact is that he's not been able to practice. He hasn't been able to learn. So now that you mentioned the learning curve, but we saw them struggle offensively when they were both out on the floor. And we've seen this more improved version of the offense when Tyler's off of it.
I know it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be that much of a learning curve. It's not that. I think it is simple. Play off the ball. Like, this guy's a basketball player. He's been playing basketball his whole life.
He's not going to do that. We've seen what Tyler is capable of offensively. So.
All right. Last bit of credit cookies here. So we're giving 2 to Kyle Lowry. I want to give 1 to Caleb Martin.
Absolutely.
He was unbelievable tonight. I mean, really. 5 of 8 from the field overall, 5 of 6 from 3-point range. Made 4 of his first 4 3-point attempts. 15 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. I don't even think 2 steals, and I don't even think that begins to deserve to do his night justice. What I'm looking at is the fact that he was behind only Bam Adebayo in plus minus tonight, plus 10 for Caleb Martin. I tweeted this during the game. He was just playing so hard. Yeah. He was trying so hard on every offensive and defensive possession, coming up with. He had 2 offensive rebounds. I think both of them were in the fourth quarter down the stretch when they really mattered. He was huge for them, getting out in transition, causing deflections. He's not. Again, the box score does not do it justice what he was disruptively on defense.
No, absolutely. The point of attack defense from him, phenomenal effort. I know some people have been a little critical of Caleb because he sacrifices something athletically. He's so limited in what he can do at times. The energy, though, the way he plays his role, I think, is so important to kind of take into consideration when you're watching that, and the effort. So incredible. Like, again, just willing to do everything. There were shots there he could have made. There were opportunities at the basket maybe that he didn't capitalize. Either way, though, when you look at the bigger picture of what he was able to bring tonight, it led to a win, and I think a big part of that was just the overall effort, and that matters. That matters to his teammates, to see him diving to the floor, doing everything he needs to do in order to secure the ball or to be able to just push the pace to some degree. I think all those things kind of play out in the macro view of what he can do as a teammate.
And that defense to offense stuff is really important. It's something we're going to talk about here in a minute. What the Heat can carry over from this 3-game win streak into this upcoming 4-game road trip. We're going to talk about that next. But first, David, tell them about PrizePicks.
PrizePicks. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Daily fantasy made easy. All you have to do is pick 2 to 5 players, and if they will score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. And the best part, no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes the NBA, of course, the NFL, Major League Baseball. Well, now it's over, but NHL, college basketball, college football, so many sports. Boxing, disc golf. Hell, I didn't even realize that people were playing some bets on that, but I know it's a huge sport. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. It's safe, and fast withdrawals are available. Currently operational in over 30 states and in Canada. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up today and play daily fantasy soon. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 using the promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100 back. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50 back. It's that easy. So don't forget to enter the promo code LOCKEDON and sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100 today.
Back here with Locked On Heat, we're going to talk about what the Heat can carry over from this 3-game win streak into this 4-game road trip starting Wednesday night. But I want to get to this first, this quote from Eric Spoelstra that you referenced earlier, David. Here it is. Talking about Bam Adebayo's 30-point night, right? He was asked about it. He says, quote, everybody just wants him to score 40, but him reading when to be aggressive, when to create for others, when to screen for guys. I've never coached a guy with so many responsibilities and so many opinions about what he's supposed to do. So my question to you, David, was this a direct shot at Heat Twitter?
I might have been a direct shot at you, Wes.
It actually might have been.
For asking for too many questions about whether or not you should take that 3-point shot or not. I don't know if it's necessarily Heat Twitter. I don't know how much Spo pays attention to it. I think maybe somebody from Heat PR probably relates, they're questioning Bam. But you're right. Fans in general want to see Bam more aggressive. And again, looking at that final statistic in the box score, how many points does he score? How many shots does he take? Things of that sort. We've heard about the need for Bam to be more aggressive. So I kind of buy into what Spo is saying. At the same time, I'll push back a little bit. We've seen moments from Bam where he doesn't take that leap. He doesn't get aggressive enough and looking for his own offense, and it's led to Heat losses. But on a night like tonight where it's balancing not just his aggression, the fact that he's getting to the line 14 times, phenomenal night, and at the same time doing all the other things that he does so well. This is the best version of Bam Adebayo because he's so good, because he's so impactful in every other metric, everything that he does defensively, making plays for others, pulling down rebounds, getting to the line. This is the kind of version of Bam Adebayo that can propel this team not just to a playoff team, but to a title contender.
Well, let's talk about it then, because that's part of what we're talking about here is what can they take away from this 3-game win streak into this 4-game trip? And then I guess, like you said, the rest of the season, but specifically going into this 4-game road trip. To me, it's Bam Adebayo being aggressive in this way, which coincides with their ball movement just being a little bit better. You're asking Bam to do a little bit less offensively with the ball in his hands early in the shot clock. You're able to get him involved in just basic pick-and-roll actions, but also you're involving Bam into the short roll with Max Strus and Caleb Martin and Duncan Robinson kind of coming off beyond the arc and making themselves available for three-pointers. That's the other thing, is that the Heat have been taking a lot more threes in this last few games. 36.7 three-point attempts on average over this 3-game win streak. Small sample size, but that's where they want to be.
Closer to that 40 threshold.
Exactly. So those are the two things I'm looking at offensively. The ball movement that leads to more three-point attempts, leads to better shots at the basket, the cutting, all that kind of stuff that we've seen over the last 3 games.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think there are definite steps in the right direction. And you want it to be indicative of something they can continue to build off of. And again, I think between the positivity, between what we've seen on the court, it's hard to dismiss the fact, again, that they're playing this way without Tyler Herro. But still, I think they'll find a way to incorporate him. They'll find a way to strike that balance. They have to. And look, it doesn't matter if they win these 3 games if you don't continue finding ways to win and finding your identity. But they're getting closer and closer. And remember, we've never swung too completely in one direction where it's been so dire. A lot of Heat fans have said, oh, even today, they'll criticize this team. They're not going anywhere. This is barely a playoff team, etc. But a lot of these losses have been very, very close games. They've tried to get over to that hump. They've been there, just this close, and just haven't been able to get over it. But we've seen them string 3 quality wins together, and this is a launching pad for them to continue to grow and to evolve, to find their identity, to become the team that we expect them to be at the start of the season.
The other part, too, is the rebounding, too. They're gang rebounding. This is a small team. We did get a question about it on Twitter. Is it a positioning thing? Is it a personnel thing? Whatever. Yeah. I think it's an effort thing. I think it's a dedication thing. I think it's just a priority that they have to have. Is they need to gang rebound. They need to crash the boards. They need to get easy buckets. They have 17 offensive rebounds tonight.
That's not sustainable.
20 second chance points to Phoenix's 23. No, it's not sustainable, but they do need to work harder on the boards. Which is surprising that I'm saying that because I think rebounding's stupid, but whatever. We've
seen the way that transition offense, for other teams when they're not able to pull down these boards, it's been a factor in a lot of these losses. So you're right. I think they do have to make a more concerted effort, and it's too taxing. It's too demanding for them to be able to ask Gabe Vincent to pull down 4 rebounds tonight. That's like he's barely 6 feet tall. That's not really. Something that you can continue to expect from him.
No, but Jimmy can have 13. Bam can have 10.
Jimmy Butler should not have to average 13 rebounds over the course of the season.
Yeah, I know, but against a smaller Phoenix team that was without some guys, they were lining up a little bit smaller. That makes sense. Tyler coming back, he's a good rebounder. He's 4, 5, 6 rebounds a game.
That's fair.
The other part is the points off of turnovers. We talked about it before. Over the last 3 games, they're averaging 21.7 points off of turnovers. That is way higher than what they were averaging during the season where they were more middle of the pack before that. It would rank near the top of the league. They kind of have to. I don't know that that's negotiable. Their half-court offense, with or without Tyler, is not that good. We could talk about Kyle Lowry and all the things that he does in the half court. At the end of the day, this team needs to score a lot of points in transition. We saw what Bam was able to get to when he was in transition, what Jimmy was able to get to in transition, what Caleb Morton is able to do in transition. It unleashes Duncan Robinson and Max Strus when they're shooting well, unlike tonight, to make those threes in transition. This team needs – it's not negotiable. They have to score a lot of points in transition. They have to be near the top of the league. I think we're starting to see some of that.
I think the zone defense is playing a big part of that. They junk everything up. They just confuse opponents. Nobody's been able to figure it out. They've probably been playing way too much of it, but at the same time, I think it's been effective because all of a sudden teams are thrown off. When they first break it out, you'll see almost immediately a turnover. And I think this is a big part of what they've been able to incorporate much more recently in order to lead to those increased turnovers and some better opportunities offensively.
And there's been some different looks, too. I saw them kind of getting aggressive and blitzing with Dwayne Dedmon out there. Yep. You noticed this the other night against Charlotte, dropping Bam Adebayo. Yep. I think it's not just the zone. It's not just to switch everything. It's mixing up the looks. Just the possession I'm talking about, Dwayne Dedmon blitzing, it was Devin Booker just coming off of the screen. You're not going to do it against Cameron Payne. You're not going to do it against even somebody as great as Dwayne Washington Jr., apparently. But you'll do it against Devin Booker just to show him a different look, because Devin Booker came around the screen expecting Dwayne Dedmon to drop, because he always does. Right. And then he didn't. And Devin Booker was confused, picked up his dribble, and had to get the ball away. And that's a win. Any possession where Devin Booker is not shooting in a game that Chris Paul is not playing, that's a win defensively for the Miami Heat. And so I think mixing up their looks a little bit more would be key. It's not something we saw a lot of, but we saw it tonight.
You did bring up a point, though, about the number of corner threes that they've given up.
Yeah,
maybe that's something. That is a little bit of concern. Again, this is the flip side to that. Is because of their heavy switch defense, because they have some subpar defenders out there in Max and Duncan Robinson, it's led to some of those easy looks. You're collapsing the paint because you don't have that typical rim protector or somebody that's a big. You've got Bam on the perimeter guarding Devin Booker. When DeAndre Ayton rolls to a rim, he's going to command a double team from Caleb Martin, Kyle Lowry. That's not great. You got Duncan Robinson having to hedge a little bit, and that leaves somebody open from the corner. Again, I think it's a concern. This is just a problem for an undersized team, but they found ways to kind of balance that by being so good. And again, making those kind of giving those different looks defensively to challenge opponents.
Let's be clear. Miami's defense was not good for most of this game. They gave up 100 points with 8 minutes to go in the game. 91 points in the first 3 quarters. they have to be better defensively. Like tonight's game, like that last 6-minute stretch, that's more of what you want to see. Yeah. But it's still also a little bit of an end the game kind of madness thing happening that they were able to take advantage of. Those 50-50 balls, they won those balls. Yeah. All that chaos, it served them. But they can't play like that for 48 minutes. They can't play like they did tonight defensively. They got to be better. Like tonight's, as good as their defense was, and despite the fact that they won the game with a defensive play, tonight's performance is not going to help their defensive rating, which, again, they came in 19th in defensive rating coming to this game. They need to be better defensively.
They allowed 39% shooting from three-point range, 49% overall. Not great. I'm going to make this point because I feel it's important to do so. A lot of Suns fans are going to point to it anyway, and I want to make sure that we provide a balanced account here. The Suns only shot 4 free throw attempts. So it was a huge free throw disparity. 4 for Phoenix, 25 free throw attempts for Miami. Yeah. A lot of those late in the games, too. They had 8 in the last quarter as opposed to just 1 for Phoenix. I think it's important to point that out because Miami got a friendlier whistle. Maybe you could point to the fact that they were being aggressive and that Phoenix's kind of handsy physical defense was eventually going to get some calls against them. But I think Miami was definitely the beneficiary of that. I know a lot of Heat fans will point out later on that that they've been screwed over in the past with an unfriendly whistle. Well, this is where it all balances out again.
And this is where they missed Cam Johnson. They missed Chris Paul a lot. These are smart defenders. Torrey Craig, he fouls a lot. He fouled 4 times tonight. DeAndre Ayton, he fouls a lot.
Absolutely.
And Bam Adebayo, we didn't mention this during the credit cookies portion.
Aggressive and going out.
Aggressive at DeAndre Ayton. You've pointed this out a lot. Bam Adebayo sometimes shying away from bigger centers. Yeah. Did not tonight. Went right at him. That forced DeAndre Ayton into foul trouble. Devin Booker, 5 personal fouls. That's not really his game. He's not really a guy who picks up a ton of fouls. Cameron Payne, 4 fouls. That's kind of normal for him against bigger teams. But yeah, overall, big Heat win. They win on defensive possession. You hope that can propel them going forward defensively, give them some belief because, again, this could have been a lot worse. Instead, they win the game on a huge Jimmy Butler block. Jimmy Butler, Eric Spoelstra sharing a hug after the game. Fun locker room after the game. The next time that this team plays, Wednesday in Toronto, that's followed up Friday in Washington to kick off this 4-game trip. We'll have recaps of that game in Toronto. But for now, this has been Locked On Heat. Thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Remember to subscribe to new episodes of Locked On Heat on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Ring the bell to get notified as soon as new episodes go up.
Shout out to Jesse, our fan, that pointed out to us that he enjoys our podcast. Thanks to all of our fans for always tuning in. If you see us around FTX, make sure to drop by and say hello.
Shout out, Jesse.